Good morning and welcome to SFN, South Florida's most trusted news station. Today I'm here to talk about a recent outbreak of deadly virus rapidly spreading in horse ranches across the United States. The disease is equine encephalitis virus infections in horses and other equine species in Louisiana. Eastern equine encephalitis, also known as EEE, is a more common than the Western strain and tends to occur in outbreak form. These diseases are transmitted to horses and humans by mosquitoes that have fed on infected wild birds. The EEE virus was first identified in mosquitoes in Louisiana in 1951. The virus is active in horses to some degree every year. EEE virus attacks the central nervous system of its host. Unvaccinated horses are particularly susceptible to the infection. The disease appears within 5 days after mosquitoes transmit the virus to the horse. Onset of clinical signs of EEE are abrupt, and affected horses die within 3 days. Signs of EEE in horses include fever, a sleepy appearance, some muscle twitches of the head, neck, shoulder, and flank, and a weak, staggering gait. Affected animals are soon down, unable to stand. There is no effective treatment. The fatality rate is 90% or higher. An animal that survives may have permanent brain damage. For more information, let me turn now to my field reporter, Danielle Lax.
Thank you, Anna. And now we're here with Dr. Jessica Cisneros, who's going to help us out and elaborate on what Eastern equine is. Hi, what is Eastern equine encephalitis?
Good morning, Danielle. Well, Eastern equine encephalitis is a viral disease caused by infected mosquitoes. When an EEE-infected mosquito bites a non-immune horse, or even a human, the virus spreads and attacks the central nervous system, causing nervous signs such as profound depression, blindness, staggering, and even seizures. Most affected horses die within several days.
Where does EEE come from?
Eastern equine encephalitis occurs in nature in a wide variety of songbirds. Blood samples obtained from birds in New Jersey, where most of the research on EEE has been conducted, indicates that the blue jay, tufted titmouse, chickadee, catbird, and cardinal are most often infected. These birds do not actually develop the disease, but maintain high levels of the EEE virus. They are considered reservoirs in the disease cycle. The spreader of the virus, primarily the mosquito species Culiceta melanura, it transmits the virus from bird to bird. This mosquito is found around marshes and wooded wetlands and rarely feeds on people or horses. Consequently, the EEE virus normally exists in a rather secluded environment where it does not pose an immediate threat to horses or people.
Does EEE represent a serious health issue to humans?
Human cases of EEE are rare, but they can occur especially during an outbreak year. The disease produces serious illness, and the probability of recovery is less than 50%. In cases where infection actually develops into the disease, the virus produces an illness that begins with headache and stiff neck. As the disease progresses, the patient can fall into a coma, with death as a likely outcome. Recovery is possible, but individuals who recover usually suffer from permanent brain damage. Children are more likely to become infected than adults. The good news is that most humans who are bitten by infected mosquitoes abort the infection in the early stages and recover with no evidence that they ever had the disease. The overt to inapparent ratio of encephalitis in New Jersey, where most of the research on EEE is done, is estimated at 1 overt case for every 23 individuals bitten by infected mosquitoes. People who live near acid water swamps and in close proximity to ponds filled with emergent vegetation are at increased risk from the mosquitoes that transmit EEE.
Can EEE be spread by an infected horse?
No, EEE cannot be passed on from contact with an infected horse. It is only spread through mosquitoes that have obtained the virus from infected birds.
How difficult is it to diagnose EEE?
It is important to find out the cause of the illness. Other diseases and poisonings may have similar symptoms. The horse's veterinarian may want to obtain blood samples to send to a diagnostic laboratory to test for EE. Rabies, equine infectious anemia, liver failure, equine protozoan myelitis, and botulism, West Nile virus, have similar signs to EEE and should be considered. If the animal dies, a thorough autopsy may be necessary to confirm the cause of death.
What should one do if the horse develops symptoms?
That is a very good question. One of the main challenges we encounter with this disease is that it is quite difficult to diagnose because of how similar the symptoms are to other diseases. Consequently, blood work needs to be done, and because of how quickly EEE progresses, we often do not receive the blood work in on time to save the horse's life.
Thank you, doctor. Now back to Anna at the station.
Thanks, Danielle and Dr. Cisneros, for that information. Now let's see a couple clips of the devastating impact of the EEE viruses in horses.
Let's turn it around.
When did this start? Not that long ago. She's about to crash and burn? Or get better, one or the other. You don't have a possible diagnosis yet? It's Tripoli. Another one.
Wow, that was hard to watch. Now, let's get back to our field reporter, Danielle, for a personal story about EEE.
Thank you, Anna. And now we're here with Kayla, who's going to answer a few questions about her personal experience with EEE. Kayla, what causes an EEE outbreak in horses?
There are two possible explanations for EEE outbreaks in horses, and both are probably responsible during epidemic years. One factor involves Mother Nature, and the other is related to health management of horses. Transmission of EEE from birds to horses and people can occur when mosquito populations are high. In this situation, mosquito species become involved in the transmission cycle of the EEE virus. Since certain mosquito species are more likely to feed on people and horses, it gives the EEE virus alternative host from the bird, reservoir, and other more secluded habitats. Horses are usually the first to become infected because they are normally housed in rural areas and they have a much greater exposure to mosquitoes. The potential for an outbreak of the disease in horses may correspond to the number of unvaccinated animals present. It is unusual to see EEE in a horse that has received the initial vaccine series and timely boosters. During an outbreak, most people have their animals vaccinated, but then fail to follow up with annual booster shots the next year or so. 2 or 3 years after the last outbreak, the population of unvaccinated animals has increased considerably, and another outbreak is possible.
What is the best way to protect my horse?
Annual vaccination of all horses and other equine species is recommended. Horses vaccinated for the first time must receive an injection of Eastern equine encephalitis and Western equine encephalitis combined vaccine, followed by a second dose of the vaccine 3 to 4 weeks later. This 2-dose series is an essential to establish an effective immune response. A booster shot should be given in the spring each year thereafter. If an outbreak of EEE or WEE occurs in the area or late summer or fall, A second booster is advised. Foals should be vaccinated at 4, 5, and 6 months of age. 3 doses total to ensure protection. Another booster should be given in 6 months and annually thereafter. Vaccines are available from various sources. Proper handling and administration of vaccine are essential to ensure adequate protection. An overall health program for horses is recommended. It would include vaccinations administered by a veterinarian.
What is the best way to protect my family if my horse contracts EEE?
No human vaccine is available for routine use, so avoiding mosquitoes is the best protection where EEE is present. In places with mosquitoes, control districts and agencies should be aware. Mosquito control personnel are familiar with the EEE cycle and have the expertise to reduce the mosquitoes that transmit the disease. Homeowners as well as horse owners can take measures to reduce the threat of EEE. First, avoid mosquito-infected areas and use insect repellent when exposures are unavoidable. Eliminating containers that hold water from your property, such as buckets, tires, and other receptacles, will reduce mosquito breeding in the immediate vicinity. Horse troughs provide an excellent mosquito breeding habitat and should be cleaned at least once each week to reduce mosquitoes near the paddock. The use of insecticides for treating mosquito resting areas around homes and livestock premises are helpful too.
Can you tell everyone at home about your story and how you know so much about EEE?
I'd be glad to.
I started riding horses at the age of 9, and on my 10th birthday, my parents bought me my first horse, Fritz. He would follow me around like a dog and do anything I asked. In August of 2010, I went to see him after school one day. When I arrived, I noticed that his head was drooping very low to the ground as if he was sleeping. I walked into his stall to wake him up, but he didn't move. Then I noticed his ears and muzzle twitching. Then I walked him out, and he was stumbling and losing his balance, so I knew something was wrong. I called my trainer and veterinarian. The vet drew blood and gave Fritz an IV. She said she would put a rush on the tests because there was a potential for this to be a life-threatening illness, but they may not arrive until the next day. She sedated him to prevent him from running into walls and falling and injuring himself more. I stayed with him all night, and by morning he was down, unable to stand. He died around 9 a.m. that day, and I was devastated. When the results arrived, I found out Fritz was diagnosed with Eastern equine encephalitis. I researched the disease so I could better understand what happened and help my friends protect their horses from the same tragic event.
Thank you, Danielle and Caleb, for that story. That's all the time we have for today. Have a nice day, and remember to wear mosquito repellent.